You are listening to Single Smart Female, Romantic Fairy Godmama Edition.
This episode is sponsored by the Secret Society of Adored Women. If you are fed up with craptastic dating experiences that lead to a mediocre or even non-existent love life, then spend 16 weeks with me, Jen, your romantic fairy godmama, walking in the adored woman world. The Secret Society of Adored Women now has 2 membership options just for you. See you over at the Secret Society of AdoredWomen.com. Hey, Gen 1 here, your romantic fairy godmama, coming to you today with a romantic fairy godmama topic. The topic is, are you too triggered to date and find love? Now, fair warning. This is an episode that's likely to trigger the fuck out of many women, okay? For which I make no apologies. And with that said, I want you to remember that if you are triggered at any point, you're more than welcome to turn this off. You know, that's the power that you have in your life. You do not have to participate in anything that you are triggered by. However, with that said, I do recommend that sometimes things that trigger you, sometimes you need to take a couple steps back from it, and I do this frequently, is take a couple steps back and ask, why is this triggering me so much? Is there a piece of me that sees truth in it and that truth burns? Is this something I just know in my heart is blatantly false and that triggers me? Is there, I mean, the list really does keep going on and on, but ultimately is your choice. You get to consume the things that you want to consume in life. So with that said, let's dive into this, because the unfortunate thing I see is I have the privilege. There's an unfortunate piece and then there's also the privilege piece. I have the privilege of working with single, ambitious, successful women on a daily basis. And I recognize that this particular sector of females gets triggered quite frequently. And why? Well, because we tend to worry about a lot. Worry and being triggered go hand in hand. And I personally believe, and I have seen in my own life enough to say that I recommend this, that when you give up a good portion of that worry, some of the triggering goes away. When you decide that you don't want to be offended by everything and that you are able to thicken your skin around certain things, not everything, but certain things, and you even find humor in those certain things, which I think is a great tactic, then opportunities are going to open up for you because you've taken this huge weight of worry and being triggered off of yourself and you've given yourself space to breathe. Worry and being triggered weigh a fuck ton. Okay? And I personally think as women, we are, instead of working on releasing some of that and being like, you know, honestly, why am I worrying about this? Leaving things play out themselves, certain things, not everything, but certain things, we would be so much more free to enjoy things. Now, one of the biggest issues men have with us is that we don't have any space to have fun. And then when we get that opportunity with men, we do a fake version of it to try to impress him momentarily, and that shit comes off as fake because we haven't really learned to take the pressure off, to decompress, to enjoy ourselves, and to not be triggered by every fucking thing that happens. I can't tell you how many messages I get about women telling me, how is it even possible, Jen, that you, when you were dating your husband, you didn't hear from him for 5 weeks and you were okay with that? And I'm going to tell you the same thing. Well, first off, I had something fun in place called my Mantourage, and I decided to not take everything personally. Okay? So you're going to hear in other dating realms, you know, it's just he's not that into you, it's this, it's that. I decided to not look at it that way. I just decided to look at it from the perspective of he's not my man right now. But I have an amazing Mantourage that I can focus on and still have fun and get all my needs met and continue this adventure and journey. And I decided I wasn't going to be pissed off about everything that a man does. I wasn't going to be triggered by everything he does. And if I felt triggering coming up, I would use my tools that I teach women in the Secret Society of Adored Women. I would use these tools to decompress, to let go, to move on, to not hyper-focus on the faults or the shortcomings or the perceived injustice of him not calling me for a week. Or in this case, 5 weeks. All right? The truth is that we take things as women, and certain things we should take seriously, but we take everything too fucking seriously. It's going to piss a lot of women off that I say this. Go ahead. Be pissed off. All right? But then come back to it later and chew on it. How much time, your valuable time in your life, are you wasting being pissed off about stuff that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things for you? Okay? Now, let's talk about activism and stuff like that. There is absolutely 100% nothing wrong with being passionate about things on a global scale and incorporating those into your life and doing good for those. Okay? But if you're taking it to a level where you can't be happy, there's no space for you to be happy unless that problem is ultimately wiped out, which, let's be honest, a lot of these problems, global problems, are going to take a while to wipe out, then you're missing out on great parts of your life. And I can guarantee you're missing out on amazing parts of your love life. So be an activist, but keep some space in there for happiness, for you, for joy. Okay? You do not have to sacrifice one for the other. You can still have both. You can still be and have both. All right? Remember that. Make some space for happiness. Don't let everything trigger you all the time. Because ultimately, I remember somebody telling me this years ago, if somebody takes your peace, they win. Now, I will tell you, this isn't always the easiest feat in the world because your girl here, I'm a hothead from way back. I've gotten significantly better over the years, and there's a lot less that triggers me now. But yeah, I can still get triggered sometimes, like ferociously triggered. And I understand that this is a process. This is a process that I am still going through and will continue to go through. But I will tell you, I have never felt as good as I feel now after letting go of excessive worry and letting go of things that I could influence but couldn't control. And purposely not worrying excessively about everything. Okay? It is okay to dedicate yourself to making one piece of the world better. It's understanding that it takes an entire world to fill in the pieces. You as one single person are amazing and powerful, but it's not all your responsibility. So you shouldn't be holding that on your shoulders and then getting pissed off at everybody else when they don't comply properly. Okay? The other thing, there's another piece to add to this, because I think this is where a lot of women get caught, and it happens in regular life and dating, is that we set up certain expectations in our head of how people should respond to us, especially in dating and men. And if that doesn't happen, then we feel gut punched, and then some of us come out fighting. There's nothing better I love than a great female fighter. I like it. I like it a lot. I like passion. I like fierceness. That shit has to be reined in, because if you're coming out with it all the time, it loses its power. It absolutely 100% loses its power. This is also something we talk about in secret societies. Sometimes, and I'm not talking physically, I'm talking just emotionally, I literally teach communicating in a different way called sweet spot communication with men. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to mantouragedating.com for a free class from me on Mantourage Dating 101. Mantourage, by the way, it's spelled MANTOURAGE, dating.com. Okay, so I teach, as Adored Women, what we do is we lead with the fun. We lead with a calm, cool head. We interact differently with men. We also have a higher percentage of being heard by men because of this. But that doesn't mean that all that fire goes away. Okay? If you emotionally get backed into a corner or verbally get backed into a corner, there's a great place I want you to have, I want you to be verbally ready as well. And it's more potent because it's not your go-to. So let me explain that again one more time. If you're the woman who's always verbally lashing out, that is not near as potent as a woman who keeps her calm, says what she needs to say, has some fun with it, and then if she absolutely gets backed into a corner, then she lashes. Then she strikes. Actually, not lashes, strikes. That is going to be heard significantly more. Your point is going to be taken into account more permanently that way. Now, I want to have this conversation with women because this whole being triggered thing is really cutting off the space for men and women to connect. Why? Well, because men feel like they really can't win with women anymore. And trust me, I know a lot of women just got triggered by that. Well, I want to explain there's a couple things that happen. When a woman's always mad or she's always telling him what he's doing wrong, again, there's no space for him to do anything right. And there's no desire, because if you're constantly being told what you're doing wrong, you at some point feel like you can't do right. And then there's the women who they'll hear this and they'll tell me, okay, well, I'll overcompensate and go in the other way. And then she has no boundaries at all and she lets men walk all over her, which doesn't work either. Both of these methods suck for dating and love. So I'm talking about the triggered part today because the less you find yourself triggered in life, the more you start finding what's right in your life. And again, you can still work towards a thing or two that's specific that you think needs to be improved on a global scale or even, a local scale. But you have to take some time to find what's right in your life. If you don't, you have no space for creating something magical. Magic doesn't exist in a box of anger. Okay? Not the way that you want it to. When I talk about learning to create magical experiences in dating and that lead to a love life that you really want, I'm not kidding. I'm not making this shit up. The thing is that you have to learn how to do things differently. And a lot of women think that that's by understanding what men want, what men need, all that kind of stuff. No, it's not about that at all. It's about really, truly, for the first time, understanding who you are without the whole trigger cover and conveying that to him in a way that he's receptive to. And teaching him how to adore you instead of expecting him to just automatically know. And then all of a sudden, your entire world has changed romantically. And you have made the space for some amazing stuff to happen. But if you're still triggered, I want you to take some steps back from this. Why am I so triggered? Why do I need to be angry about everything? What happens if I'm willing to say, you know what? I can't hold the space for all of this. So I'm going to pick and choose a few things that I'm really passionate about. And then I'm going to allow space in my life for just being silly, being fun, smiling, laughing again, not being so angry or worked up, recognizing that I have more power in my life than I am willing to admit, and enjoying that power. Now, I am going to tell you right now that you won't see as many examples of that if you claim that your world is basically dictated by everybody else. You have to be willing to admit that you have a lot of influence on your world, your time, your schedule. And I've had clients this has happened to. If you feel like you're only subject to somebody else's schedule, you're going to be miserable. And I want to say this because I've had lots of clients who have come to me, and when they finally recognize this, even in work that they thought was so demanding, they realized that a lot of it was their own perception of what was expected of them. And then when they started to release that and let go of some of that, then all of a sudden they have space for this joy, this happiness, stuff that they didn't have before. I'm going to keep reminding all of you ladies because I really care about you. You don't have to worry as much as you think you have to worry. It doesn't make you a better woman to be worried sick all the time. It's kind of a theme as women. That there's two themes: being worried. I'm just so worried. And I hear women all the time talk, I'm just worried. I'm worried. I'm worried. That repeated statement over and over again. And then the other one is I'm so busy. Okay? You don't lose your woman card for not being worried, and you don't lose your woman card for not being busy. And in fact, I recommend if you find yourself saying those two phrases frequently, that you eliminate them. Have fun with eliminating them. I know it's going to be a challenge, but it's actually quite fun. Another one that I really like to eliminate too is the word like. We say like a lot. So I'm worried, I'm busy, I'm so busy, and like. There's a word phrase game for you. Have some fun with that. It'll be game-changing and life-shifting for you. Why? Because you're going to start seeing more and recognizing how much influence you have on your life. You will start to be triggered less. When you're triggered less, you have more space for love and fun and connection. And that's what long-term romance is actually based on, okay? Long-term romance isn't finding somebody that's going to stick with you no matter what. There's a component of that, but you can guarantee that if you have space for fun, love, connection. And finally, we're talking about not being triggered. I also want you to remember that men are not perfect beings, but they're actually some of my favorite beings to be around. And let me tell you why. I love the fact that I don't have to filter myself constantly in front of men. I love it. It's the most freeing, relieving place to be. So I'm not particularly, in my personal life, I'm not particularly politically correct. And I know a lot of women will find that extremely offensive. But with men, they don't. And I love that about them. It's one thing to be supportive. It's one thing to be respectful. But always think about the level that you are taking things to. And the reason I say this is not so much for myself, but for you and your love life. Because if you're always triggered, if a man doesn't say things perfectly to you or the exact right way, you're always triggered that he offends you in some way, then it's going to make your love life a lot more challenging. I want you to have a sense of humor about your love life. Not every date's going to be perfect. Not every interaction's going to be perfect. I mean, some of the best interactions I ever had were some of the biggest disasters because they're fucking hilarious. And let yourself have a sense of humor. I know there's one in you. I bet you it's intelligent as fuck. And we all know that intelligent humor is the best humor. So if you have found yourself, really uptight about a lot of things and just really feeling exhausted or always wound up, things like that, take some steps back and recognize that you have the power to unwind that for yourself. And it could be something just as simple as not being personally offended about everything. Not feeling that if they don't say the things exactly the right way. By the way, and I tell clients this all the time, guys, especially in the beginning, they fuck some shit up. And I'm going to tell you why, because they're just as nervous as we are when we're engaging and going on dates and stuff. And they don't want to screw it up, but ultimately do. It's not like they're ever intentionally trying to screw it up. It happens. And it is okay for you as a woman to take a few steps back from that and recognize that we're just human. Okay, lover girl, it's time for the final thought on today's show. The only thing being constantly triggered in your love life will get you is more opportunities to be triggered. Choose your triggers wisely. Thank you, lover girl, for joining us on this Romantic Fairy Godmama edition of Single Smart Female. Don't forget to text this episode to all of your single smart girlfriends, as well as visit us at singlesmartfemale.com.
We'll talk to you next time.
And here's to you having everything you want in life and love. This episode is sponsored by the Secret Society of Adored Women. If you are fed up with craptastic dating experiences that lead to a mediocre or even non-existent love life, then spend 16 weeks with me, Jen, your romantic fairy godmama, walking in the adored woman world. The Secret Society of Adored Women now has 2 membership options just for you. See you over at The Secret Society of Adored Women.com.